Right, hi guys, Sir Sean, back with another video here on the Shankly's Boot Room. Um, First of all, I want to start with the Shankly's Boot Room actually, because what was it all about? Well, of course, the Shankly's Boot Room was where they went to discuss the things they'd won, where they went to discuss tactics, where they went to discuss the things that they need to improve on. Maybe they go in there to discuss new signings, maybe players they want to get rid of. All that kind of stuff is what went on in the Shankly's Boot Room, and it's famous for it. So it's good actually for us to go into our boot room on this channel today to just dissect yesterday and go over a bit about what happened and everything that's around the whole game, really, and probably leading up to it. And I want to start with a couple of weeks ago and something which Arnie Slot said, which I actually haven't heard anyone else mention. But it's something that struck me quite strongly, actually, really, because basically what happened was he said he got asked a question, and it was to do with squads and all that type of thing. And he basically replied by saying, well, I actually like a small squad. I like 14, 15 players. That's what I like. And he says he doesn't really believe in big squads. Now, I don't know whether in those 2 weeks since we played PSG, Southampton, PSG. I think it might have been it might have been before the second leg of the PSG game when he said this. I can't remember totally exactly what it happened, but you might recall yourself him saying that. And I had my ears pricked up, and I had alarm bells went off in my head, because I thought, well, that might be all right in the Eredivisie, 6 tiers lower below this league, but in the Premiership, when you don't have a Christmas break like they do in so many leagues, when you've got so many cup rounds after cup rounds after cup rounds, when you've got all the cups tend to be condensed together, so you've got this cup runs that go. So in other words, by the time March comes, like we're in now, and 6 out of the last 7 seasons, we haven't particularly done very well in terms of our last 10 game sort of situation. Our last 10 games, we've been generally running out of steam, having a ton of injuries, and just petering out on our seasons. And we look a lot less fresh to a lot of other teams in the same league, etc. Now, can I just put all that down to having bigger squads? No, because many of them are the lower teams, the lesser teams. But one thing you can say is that we played another extra 9 games on Newcastle, because we've been in a lot of competitions. And one of the common themes over the last few years is we've been in lots of competitions. Twice we've been in what they classify as a quad, which I don't think personally is going to ever happen. But we've been in it until late. So we've gone through those extra rounds, and we've gone through all this kind of thing. So, I mean, unless Arnie Slot just wants to go for the league every year and blow everything else, which is obviously not acceptable for us as fans and not acceptable from a Liverpool perspective anyway, and I don't believe that is what he wants anyway, because it's come out many times and said Liverpool have to win every game. You're not going to do that on a 14, 15 man squad. It's just not going to happen. But because of that, I think it helps us to understand why some of the decisions in the last few games have been the way they are, in the fact that he's overlooked players he could have played at times. I go back to the Southampton game, really. I don't personally feel we needed to field that stronger a team. One, because of our points advantage at the time, but two, also, we would have had enough to get over the line. All you've got to do really with Southampton is pass them to death. Keep hold of the ball and pass it, and they'll just run out of steam, and you will get goals in that game. You know, they've had, I think it was 9 points on the board at the time when we met them, but we went very strong in that game, and we didn't do some of the things that we could have probably done. Bring Endo in as an example. Why not give Gravenberch or McAllister a bit of a break? Now, I know at the start of the season he wanted to bring in Zubimendi. He wanted an extra midfielder, but it never happened. And this brings me on to the point two of my issues at the moment. Let me just lay this down there for you. Arnie Slot has been absolutely fantastic in his first year. We cannot get around that. He has been immensely good in just the whole tactical analysis of every. You can go into most games and tactically analyze them. If we haven't been good in the first half, we've been better in the second half. If we've been really good in a first half, we managed to see it over the line in the second half. Things like this have been going on all season. And I think particularly back to the Fulham game where he made about 6 in-game changes to get the formation and the setup right for that match, for the rest to see that match out, even though we probably should have won that game. And there's been a few of those. But although he hasn't been perfect, he's been amazing for his first season in the Premier League. I don't want to not see my wife and my kids for a day, let alone living apart from them like he's been doing in a strange country, etc., etc., and all that kind of thing. I'm not making excuses for Arnie Slot. I'm just giving some pointers as to just how amazing this guy's been, really, because those are the sorts of things that would worry me, you know. And yes, he's professional enough to not take it into his work, but you know, and he's been taking work home from what few things I've heard him say over the year. But since the time he's been in there, he has been amazing. But we've seen a tail off in not only the team, but I think in Arnie Slot as well, in his planning, in his attention to detail. Let's go over the game yesterday. There isn't much to say about the game in terms of anything that we actually done in the game because we basically didn't have any of that game. It was absolutely probably the worst final I think I've ever seen, and I've been supporting the club since as a lot of you know, since 1974, and I don't recall one as bad as that. I can think of a couple of games. I wasn't particularly that impressed with our Champions League final actually in 2019 when we played Tottenham. I thought we were very nervy and cagey, and it was a pretty poor final really, but we got over the line and won it. But this was a poor one. We're playing a team which we beat only a few weeks ago. Now, of course, no game is, you know, things change all the time in football and that can happen. But it's the lack of fight, the lack of intensity, the lack of all round desire, really, to try and get something out of that game. Now, I understand Newcastle haven't won it in 70 years. They're going to be fired up. The tackles are going to be flying in, etc., etc., etc. I understand all of that kind of stuff. That's, you know, obviously is, and I did kind of think beforehand this is going to be a really tough game because of that. If that alone, they played it 2 years ago and they lost in the final. They were damn well going to be determined to do that, and they knew they had to give their best performance against Liverpool, who've been the best all season in terms of the league. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So they knew that, and they came out and done that. But we should have been ready for that, and we didn't match up with them in terms of intensity or any of that stuff all the way through. And there was quite a lot of crazy decisions in the game. I mean, it's been mentioned by other channels, and I'll mention it as well because it has to be highlighted. Is the McAllister on Dan Burn thing? You know, the guy's 7 foot tall, and you know, no, I think he's 6'7", but he's a tall lad, the biggest in the team, biggest on the day, etc., etc. One of the biggest in the Premiership, and he's up against McAllister, who's what 5'8". I don't know what his exact height, 5'7", 5'8", I'd say. So a foot over, a foot taller. Any decent ball into the box anywhere near him, going to get his head on it, and that's it. I still feel that Kelleher should have probably done better on that shot. Really, I've seen it back a few times now, and I just think, could he have just anticipated and got across a bit quicker there? But anyway, whatever the case may be, they go 1-0 up, and deservedly so. And just right through the whole entire game, we didn't get even much better in the second half, really. A little bit more control of the ball in the second half, put a little bit of pressure on them. But it took until the injury time sort of substitutions, really, for us to get back into the game. And they came from the most unlikely of sources of Elliott combining with, you know, Elliott playing pretty well in that period. And of course, Chiesa come on, who was bright from when he came on. which then, and of course he scores, but it's too late really to make that much of an impact. It just comes too late in the game. You're talking about wonder stuff to have got back into it from there, really. Barcelona nights and that kind of a thing. Um, so where are we at with all this? He clearly doesn't rate the whole team. That's clear to see, because there's certain players he just doesn't play, or he at least doesn't even start with them, even in some of the lesser games. But it comes back to my point that I made at the beginning when Arne Slot said that he likes to have a small squad and play with a small squad, and that's a reflection of how he played in the Eredivisie as well. But I think in the Eredivisie they get a winter break. I think in the Eredivisie they play less games. I think in the Eredivisie definitely the intensity isn't the same as it is in the Premiership, week on week on week on week. And we've been a victim of the league to a certain point in um, a lot of. I don't buy into the Paris Saint-Germain in the second leg had so many days off because they fielded a second fiddle team the previous weekend for their league match, and we played a full strength team, because I still don't think we should have played a full strength team. I still think we should have done the same. That should have been our tactic. It's not like we're 1 or 2 points ahead of Arsenal, and it's really on a really tight. We're a good few points ahead where, you can take those few risks to not make damaging changes to the team, but enough to just give 1 or 2 players that ended up being really poor on the PSG game, and that then feeds into, and of course, when you start losing games, that negativity and momentum, and also a little bit of confidence starts to go from the team as well. So it's already a team which we all know needs to be upgraded on in certain areas anyway. Factor in also the changes that we're not making where we should be. And that's, I think, some of the reason why we can start alluding to what's going on with the team right now, and making changes a bit too late, making the wrong changes. When Kanate went off, it was Gravenberch, wasn't it? Went back into centre back, and Gravenberch hadn't been great himself. He then takes off Gravenberch and moves over and brings on Jones and moves over. Did you bring on Jones? Moves over Kwanzaa. If there's any player actually that you can have a little bit of something positive to say about, but not much, is probably Kwanzaa, actually, funnily enough. But what we're starting to also see is the players he has no faith in, when they come on, they're proving him wrong. And so that brings into another question of, Klopp was very big on how you train. How you train affects how you're going to maybe feature in terms of playing for the team. Yeah. So let's look at it like this. If you give a good training session and you play above yourself, there's a chance you might get into Klopp's team. He might put you in on the weekend. But we're not seeing that with Slot. Now, I'm not at the training ground every day to see how these players are. Maybe Chiesa and Endo and that are just absolute rubbish. I would be very, very stunned if they are. But that's the feedback you probably might have to look at and say, well, perhaps they're really poor in training then. That's all I can think of. That's why he's got no faith in them. Because it's hard to see outside of that why he wouldn't be playing some of these. Apart from the FA Cup game, Chiesa's given some quite good cameos, which could have been built on, When we look at the team, Jota is so out of form, so low in confidence. I think he's either still carrying an injury or is worried about an injury, because he's so immobile around the front area there. I mean, the one thing you could never accuse Jota of being over the past has been immobile, but that's actually how he looks. He just looks sluggish and like he doesn't want to make too many turns and all this kind of stuff, and very low on confidence as well. So when you consider that the previous game he stunk the place out and he goes with him again, some people have said to me, but who would you start then? Well, how about you put Diaz in the 9 role, who's not playing well as well? I get that. And maybe Nunes on the wing. Put Nunes out on the wing if Gakpo can't start, because Nunes has done some quite okay performances out there. He's still not brilliant and all that kind of thing, but with his pace and everything, maybe that might have fitted him. And Klopp used him there a few times, and he was never. I actually might even go so far as saying I think he might be better um, there in that position than you might have, than you might think. But that's only one thing. That doesn't necessarily mean to say that the outcome would have been different. But you can't keep doing the same thing over and over, over again when you know it's. He's not going to suddenly just click into some amazing form or something. Something form is something you have to work into, and at this stage of the season with the important games, we don't have the time for that. So, so that's the thing there. Yeah, the subs were a bit weird. His comments after the game as well, slots, I didn't really like very much. It was more about, you know, he was effectively saying Newcastle bossed it and we didn't have any answer for that. Well, he's the manager and he's meant to come up with answers for it. And so that annoyed me a little bit when he came out with that comment, although it's true. I was expecting him to actually maybe not quite make so much of a point about that. But anyway, what I can say is it's over now, so we move on. Um, and certainly not going with a lot of the fan base that are really just sort of overdoing it with the slot out stuff. Listen, Slot's a great manager. You have to remember that Jurgen Klopp done 7 years at Mainz before he went and done another 7 years at Borussia Dortmund. When he came into Liverpool, he had 14 years of experience, and he's a great coach, yeah? But what we're probably going to win the league, and I say probably because it's not done yet, and we've really dropped off, and we don't look like we can score goals, so that worries me. But I still think we'll get this over the line. But get into the summer, I think we need to look at everything. We need to look at the team. We need to look at the balance of the team. We need to look at what's going on. I mean, inclined to sort of when we think of Virgil and Salah and their performances, which weren't that great yesterday, like everyone else in the team. But there is a question mark here which we have to look at, and that is the contracts. How would you feel if you're putting in the kind of performances they have all season, and they're still umming and ahhing over a contract? They're still not. There doesn't seem to be any common ground with where they're meeting over the contracts in the situation. That's how it looks to me because that's the way it's playing out at the moment. And so that's a big worry for me, really, in terms of the club itself and what they're doing there. Because can you really expect glowing performances from two players who've given you everything since they've been at the club? I mean, Mo's just been absolutely incredible. I know he's been poor these last 2 or 3 weeks, but maybe the season's catching up with him. Maybe it's a bit of Ramadan. Maybe it's a bit. Everyone's thrown away Ramadan. I'm not so sure that's a total thing to do. You're not eating all day for days and days and days, and and the changes that makes to a body at 32, 33, even though he's really super fit, that has to have a bit of an effect on your mental capacities and your physical ones to a certain degree, I would think. So I'm not actually throwing that out as some of the reason, but I don't think it's all. I think some of it is just he's probably petering out. We have seen this before with him. Gets to the end part of the season and he does tail off a bit because he puts so much into every performance, through the season, really. So we're seeing a bit of a tail off. And the big problem with Liverpool is we've been reliant upon him all season, and the others are letting us all down. So this is going to be a big summer for Liverpool. Big summer. There is no getting around it. We can paint it any which way we want. Even if all three signed, we've still got a lot of work to do. But there is no guarantee that all three are signing. And there's a horrible thought going through my head. What if none of them sign? But let's not go there yet. We're not at that point. But what I can say about this season is, it's been amazing in many respects of it, hasn't it? Really, we're disappointed. Yeah, of course. This past week is my birthday today, and I can't think of anything worse of a pre-birthday than the week we just had. But it's we've got to keep the positives in, and the positives are that we're still 12 points clear in the league, and we can still do this. Yeah, we can get enough together. There should be enough about us. But I just want you to keep in mind some of the things I've mentioned in this video, and they are relating around Slot actually, because he's very, very key to this. One, I hope to anything that he doesn't have or doesn't persist with a very small squad for moving forward. Liverpool are expected to win every game, guys. Every game. Yeah. You're not going to do it with 14 or 15 players, not in 2025, 2026. Even if you could do it in Shankly's day, fitness levels are totally different now. You can't do it. Not with these intense games. Look how intense our PSG game was. You just can't do it. And you've got to be able to rotate. You've got to be able to move players around. You've got to be able to, make changes. Really, I think to freshen things up in games, you have to do that. So I think it's a big summer. I think we're going to have. You could have as many as the three goes. So Nunez, Jota, and Diaz. Diaz might. There's some interest perking up a little bit about him going to Barcelona again. And if all three of those go, they're all upgradable. The only one that's not upgradable on this for me is Salah. The rest are all upgradable. Even Gakpo is upgradable. Yeah, he's been brilliant. He's still upgradable. We're talking about Liverpool Football Club here, yeah. Um, so we obviously need another midfielder, and obviously the continuing thing of the left back scenario. I couldn't be more disappointed in Simicast as an example. Simicast, for the first half of the season, we saw such an out of form Robertson. It's unbelievable. He was so bad and he couldn't find his way into the team. And luckily for us, actually, Robertson has improved a lot over the last, 6, 7 games, I'd say. I think he's been brilliant, actually. He's there was a one point yesterday where he was running just in line with Isak, and he actually overtakes Isak to deal with the situation and defend it well. Even though I don't think Isak is actually 100% himself, I don't think. He went down a few times with muscle tightness and stuff like that, cramp and everything like that. So he's maybe not quite at the level he should be. But anyway, I'm digressing a bit there now. Don't get too down, guys. Yeah, it's disappointing we're out of the cup. It's disappointing we're out of Champions League as well. But we still do have this Premiership to go for. Let's hope we get back, knuckle down, give it our absolute everything between now. Basically 9 cup finals. Is it 9 games we've got left to play? I think it is 9 cup finals, and just go for it until it's mathematically impossible. And let's win this league for the club and for Arne Slot in his first year. And then when it comes to the summer, guys, this manager has to be involved to the point of choosing the people who are coming in. And I really do mean that. And if he wins the league, he'll have the right, and I think should have the availability. When I say the right to choose whoever he wants, I don't mean it in the sense of, I want that one, that one, that one, that one, and you have to get them for me. What I'm trying to say is, because it was mentioned when he first came in that he would be a coach, and the Edwards and in particular Hughes would work on profiles of players that he wants to bring into the club. Well, I hope to God that every single player that we want to sign, he is directly involved, because we've seen enough of it this season with in particular the main three, which is Elliott, Chiesa, and Endo, that he hasn't shown very much faith in, and they've had very low minutes this season, really, where we could have utilised them more, but we haven't done because the manager doesn't want them there. Looking forward, as a little look into the future here in the boot room, in the Shankly's boot room, looking forward, something's got to happen here, and that is Slot needs to learn. He needs to learn from the mistakes. He needs to learn from some of his decisions he's made during these big games, which have been defining, I think. But it's not all on Slot. It's on the players as well. Those players went out there and they didn't give a performance for the Liverpool shirt that they should have done, by nowhere near. And I know back in Shankly's day, they would have all been in training. He'd have had them out there on that training field, and he would have had them out there till morning, till dusk, until they learn, what they did, what they've done there, kind of thing, almost. Because I know there's an international break now, but he would have been absolutely cooking over that. And I'm sure Arnie Slot is as well. But at the end of the day, yeah, the players let the fans down who travelled all the way to Wembley there to watch this. They let the manager down. As I say, the manager's got his role to play in all of this as well, but we still expect far, far better from our players, really. They look totally goosed after 15 minutes, the whole team. It's just incredible. And I don't know whether that's the intensity, whether that's just what they were so preoccupied with what Newcastle were doing, but we just weren't doing anything. We started the game with lumping balls up to 6'10", Dan Burn, and all the rest of it. And yeah, it just never worked out. But anyway, I think I'll end it now. But that's the main points I wanted to make. But we've got to be focused on. We've got to look a little bit at how this all played out here and what's happened in these last few weeks. And this season, there's been so much I've liked, but there's been some worrying things about some decision making and the players themselves, even. I mean, Virgil in the huddle. I don't know if you picked it up on the. I don't know if you picked it up on the audio. There was some audio that got out about that, and I heard it. And Virgil says, we've come this far. Let's see it through. Well, they didn't do that. They didn't even perform anywhere near to that level. So that is a shame. The players are to blame, and obviously the manager has to carry some of that blame as well. But it's not the end of the season. We've got 9 cup finals to go, and let's hope we win those and win this league. Right, okay, guys, I'm going to go now. So, yeah, have a great day. You'll never walk alone.